The phone vibrated against the nightstand at 2:41 a.m. I knew before I even looked who it would be. Nora's name glowed on the screen like an accusation. I pressed accept and her voice came through, thin and shredded, as though someone had dragged it across broken glass. "Mom," she whispered, "I'm at the Eastbridge 7th Precinct. Victor beat me tonight." Then he took a kitchen knife, sliced his own forearm, and told them I attacked him. They believe him. They're going to arrest me. The room tilted. I was already sitting up, bare feet hitting cold hardwood. "There's an officer here," she went on, breath hitching. "He keeps staring at me like he knows me. Like he's afraid of me." I closed my eyes and saw every courtroom I'd ever sat in, every woman who had sat across from me with the same tremor in her voice. I had spent 34 years believing I had built armor thick enough to protect the world from this moment. I was wrong. "I'm coming," I said. My voice sounded like someone else's, low, flat, lethal. "Do not say another word to anyone. Do you hear me, Nora? Not one more word." I hung up, threw on yesterday's jeans and the first sweater my fingers found, and was out the door before the house had time to register I was gone. Eastbridge at 2:50 a.m. is a city that has forgotten it's alive. Streetlights bled orange across empty avenues. I ran every red light between Willow Lane and the river. The engine of my old Audi howled like it understood the emergency better than I did. 12 minutes. That's how long it took to cross a city that usually swallowed 25. I double-parked directly in front of the precinct doors, left the hazards flashing, and walked in like I still wore the black robe. The lobby smelled exactly the way it always had, burnt coffee, bleach, and fear. The desk sergeant was new. He looked 25, tops. When he glanced up and saw me, the color drained from his face so fast I thought he might faint. "Judge Harper," he breathed. 6 years since I'd stepped down from the bench, and the name still worked like a skeleton key. "My daughter," I said. "Nora Reed." "Where is she?" He pointed down the hallway with a finger that trembled. "Soft interview too. Captain Brennan is." I was already moving. The hallway was the same institutional gray I remembered from 1,000 midnight warrant signings. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like dying insects. I didn't knock. I pushed the door open so hard it bounced off the wall. Nora sat on a molded plastic chair, knees drawn to her chest, sleeves tugged down over her hands. The overhead light carved brutal shadows under her eyes. When she looked up and saw me, her face crumpled the way it used to when she was 5 and skinned her knee on the driveway. "Mom." She was on her feet and in my arms before I crossed the threshold. I felt the shudder run through her entire body, felt the places where new bruises pressed against old ones. I held her at arm's length just long enough to see what he'd done. The swelling along her left cheekbone. The split inside her lower lip. The fingerprint bruises circling her upper arms like obscene bracelets. And lower, beneath the sleeve she tried to yank back down, older yellow-green shadows that told me this hadn't started tonight. "How long?" I asked, so quietly I wasn't sure she heard. She shook her head against my shoulder, unable to answer. Behind us, a young officer cleared his throat. His badge read Grant. "Ma'am, Judge Harper, I can explain." "Officer Grant," I said without turning around, "you will take my daughter to Memorial Hospital right now. Full forensic rape kit, full body photographs, full panel x-rays. You will treat her like the victim she is, and you will do it in the next 5 minutes. Are we clear?" He swallowed so hard his Adam's apple bobbed. "Crystal, ma'am." I finally looked at him. Really looked. Early 20s. Baby face. Eyes the color of storm clouds. Something clicked. "Grant," I said slowly. "Rivera versus Rivera. Domestic violence restraining order. 10 years ago. Gallery row 3, seat 8. You were wearing a green hoodie 2 sizes too big." His mouth opened. Closed. You remember me?" "I remember every face that sat behind every woman I ever tried to save. Your cousin Marisol, she made it out. Start repaying the debt tonight. He nodded once, sharp, and gently took Nora's elbow. She let him lead her away without resistance, the way frightened people do when someone finally speaks with unmistakable authority. I watched until the door closed behind them. Then I turned down the hallway toward the captain's office. I knew exactly where it was. Same corner office Brennan had occupied when he was still a detective begging me not to grant bail to the wife-beater he'd arrested the week before. Some men climb the ladder by stepping on the people they're supposed to protect. The door was ajar. I didn't knock. Captain Brennan stood behind his desk in shirt sleeves, tie loosened, pouring coffee for the man sitting opposite him like they were at the country club instead of an active crime scene. Victor Langford. 44 years old. Real estate developer. Charity gala regular. Smiled for cameras the way other people breathe. He wore a crisp white dress shirt now ruined by a dramatic slash of red across the left forearm, already neatly bandaged. The cut was shallow, straight, theatrical. Stage blood for a one-man show. He looked up when I entered and had the colossal nerve to smile. Margaret, he said warmly, rising. I figured you'd show up eventually. I closed the door with my heel. Captain Brennan set the coffee pot down with a clack. Judge Harper, this is an active investigation. Shut up, Patrick. The room went very still. Victor's smile flickered. There's no need for hostility. Nora's had a difficult night. She's not herself. I'm willing to be understanding. I took one step forward. Understanding. That's rich coming from the man who put cigarette burns on my daughter's back because dinner was 5 minutes late. His pupils contracted. Just for a second. But I saw it. Brennan found his voice. We have a complainant with a visible injury. Protocol. Protocol, I repeated, tasting the word like spoiled milk. Let me tell you about protocol, Captain. Did you photograph my daughter's injuries? Did you document the differing stages of healing that prove this has been going on for months? Or did you just take Polaroids of Victor's little scratch because he golfs with you every Thursday? Silence. Victor tried again, softer. Margaret, I know this is emotional for you. Call me Margaret one more time and I will break your jaw in front of a sworn officer of the law and dare him to arrest me. Brennan's hand drifted toward his radio. I didn't give him time. Victor Langford, you are going to sit there and keep your mouth shut while I explain exactly how this night ends. You made one mistake. You picked the wrong woman to terrorize. You picked my daughter. I pulled out my phone, dialed a number I still knew by heart. It rang twice. Harper, came the sleepy voice of Assistant District Attorney Aisha Reynolds. It's 3 a.m. I'm at the 7th. My daughter was assaulted. Her husband staged a DV callback and got here first. I need you here 5 minutes ago. Aisha was already moving. I heard bed springs, keys. On my way. I hung up and looked at Victor. That was the prosecutor who has convicted 43 domestic violence predators without a single loss. She's going to tear you into pieces small enough to flush. Victor's composure finally cracked. You can't threaten me. I have rights. You lost the right to rights the first time you put your hands on my child. The door opened behind me. Officer Grant again, pale. Judge Harper, ambulance is here for Ms. Reed. Paramedics say, they say it's bad. Fractured ribs, old and new. Possible concussion. Ligature marks. Burns. Every word hit me like a fist. Victor stood so fast his chair rolled back and crashed into the wall. She's lying. She's unstable. She did this to herself. I took one more step until I was close enough to smell the expensive cologne he wore to cover the stench of what he was. Listen to me very carefully, I said, softly enough that only he could hear. By the time the sun comes up, every secret you buried is going to be evidence. Every video you took of her when she didn't know, every threatening text, every recording she made of you, I'm going to find them all. And when the jury hears your voice promising to kill her if she ever left, they will lock you away for so long you'll forget what daylight feels like. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I turned to Brennan. Captain, you have two choices. You can start doing your job right now, or you can spend the rest of your career explaining to Internal Affairs why you protected an abuser because he buys you drinks at Oakmont Country Club. Choose quickly. Brennan looked suddenly old. He reached for his phone with a shaking hand and dialed. Victor tried one last time. You have no proof. I smiled then. It wasn't a nice smile. Actually, I said, my oldest daughter, Claire, is on her way here with a flash drive Nora gave her 2 months ago. Hours of you screaming, hitting, threatening. Timestamped. Verifiable. And I'm willing to bet when we search your penthouse we'll find the matching footage you took without her consent. Blackmail has a way of backfiring when the victim stops being afraid. Victor's face went the color of old ash. The door opened again. Claire strode in wearing pajama pants and fury, clutching a small black flash drive like a live grenade. Mom, she said, breathless, tell me where you want it. I took it from her fingers. Right here. I turned to Brennan. Captain, plug this in. He did, hands trembling. The speakers filled with Victor's voice, snarling, drunken, monstrous. If you ever try to leave me, Nora, I will ruin you. I'll send the videos to your boss, your mother, every friend you ever had. I'll make sure the world sees what a whore you really are. Another clip. A scream. The unmistakable sound of a slap. Nora begging him to stop. Brennan paused it. He looked like he was going to be sick. Victor lunged for the laptop. Grant intercepted him, twisted his arm behind his back, and slammed him face first onto the desk. Victor Langford, Grant said, voice shaking with rage, you are under arrest for aggravated assault, felony battery, making terroristic threats, and about 50 other things we'll think of later. Victor thrashed. You can't do this. Brennan, tell them. Brennan didn't look at him. Take him to booking. Grant hauled him out. Victor's shouts echoed down the hallway and then cut off behind a steel door. I stood in the sudden silence, the flash drive still warm in my palm. Claire put her arms around me from behind. She's going to be okay, Mom. I wasn't sure I believed her yet, but I nodded anyway. Outside, the sky over Eastbridge had begun to pale to the color of weak tea. A new day, whether we wanted it or not. I walked out to find Nora on a stretcher, oxygen mask fogging with every frightened breath. I took her hand. I'm here, baby, I told her. And I'm not leaving. She squeezed my fingers once, weak, but definite. Behind us, the precinct lights kept buzzing, but for the first time in hours, they didn't sound like insects anymore. They sounded like the old building finally waking up to do its job. The hospital. The ambulance doors slammed shut and the siren cut through the pre-dawn quiet like a scalpel through skin. I rode in the back with Nora, holding her hand the entire 12-minute sprint to Memorial. The paramedic, a quiet black woman named Tamika, kept glancing at the bruises blooming across Nora's ribs every time she lifted the blanket to check vitals. How long has this been going on? Tamika asked under her breath. I couldn't answer. My throat was full of broken glass. Nora turned her face toward the oxygen mask and whispered, 14 months. Maybe longer. I lost count. Tamika's jaw flexed. She didn't say anything else, but the way she adjusted the blood pressure cuff became gentler, almost protective. We hit the ER bay doors at 3:27 a.m. The trauma team took one look at Nora and the energy in the room shifted from bored night shift to razor sharp. Dr. Amani Jones, trauma attending, tiny, terrifying, legendary, snapped on gloves without breaking stride. Domestic? She asked me. Yes. Suspect in custody? Not yet long enough. She gave a curt nod that said, good. We'll make sure the evidence is airtight. They wheeled Nora straight into the forensic suite. Claire arrived 10 minutes later, still in pajama pants and snow boots, hair wild, eyes red from crying in the car. She threw her arms around me so hard my spine cracked. I listened to some of the drive on the way here, she whispered against my shoulder. Mom, I'm going to kill him. Get in line, I said. We're going to do worse than kill him. We're going to bury him in daylight. Dr. Jones came out 2 hours later, scrubbing blood off her forearms that wasn't Nora's. 2 fractured ribs, 1 healing, 1 fresh. Old wrist fracture never properly set. Concussion. Ligature marks consistent with zip ties. And cigarette burns, some months old, some weeks. I've photographed everything. Full report will be ready by noon. I closed my eyes. Thank you. She's asking for you. They had moved Nora to a private room on the 4th floor, away from the chaos of the main ER. She looked impossibly small in the hospital gown, for a line taped to the back of her hand, heart monitor beeping slow and steady. I sat on the edge of the bed and took the hand without the 4. Hi, baby. Her lip trembled. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Stop. I was ashamed. You spent your whole life saving women from men like him and I let him. Nora Elizabeth Reed, I said, using the voice that once made defense attorneys sweat, look at me. She did. You did not let him do anything. He chose, every single time, to hurt you. The shame is his. The failure is his. You survived him. That makes you the strongest person I know. Tears slid sideways into her hair. I thought if I could just be better, quieter, more perfect. There is no version of you that deserves what he did. She cried then, the deep, wrenching kind that comes after holding it in for years. I climbed onto the narrow bed and held her the way I did when she was 6 and afraid of thunderstorms. At 6:12 a.m., Officer Grant appeared in the doorway, still in uniform, eyes bloodshot eyes, holding 2 vending machine coffees. I come bearing caffeine and news, he said, handing me a cup. Captain Brennan folded like wet cardboard. He's personally supervising the search warrant for Langford's penthouse. Judge Klein signed it 20 minutes ago. We're rolling in 5. I raised an eyebrow. You're coming? I requested the detail. Told the lieutenant I had a personal interest in making sure every terabyte of that bastard's hard drive sees daylight. Claire lifted her coffee in salute. To personal interest. Grant hesitated. There's something else. Langford's lawyer, Randall Quinn, just showed up at the precinct screaming about illegal detention and suing everybody. He's threatening to have Victor out by breakfast. I smiled the smile that used to make grown men reconsider their life choices. Then let's make sure he chokes on that breakfast. The penthouse. 7:03 a.m. The Langford penthouse occupied the entire 32nd floor of the Apex, Eastbridge's newest glass tower. Doorman, private elevator, the works. The kind of place that smelled like money trying too hard. The doorman, a gentle older man named Mr. Patel, took one look at the warrant and the 6 uniforms behind me and stepped aside without a word. His eyes flicked to me. Miss Nora, he asked quietly. Safe, I said. He nodded once, fierce and relieved, and held the elevator for us himself. The apartment was exactly what I expected, cold, masculine, curated. Floor-to-ceiling windows, black marble, abstract art that cost more than most people's houses. A gilded cage with a view. Grant's team fanned out. I went straight to the office I remembered from the one time Nora had reluctantly invited us for Christmas drinks 2 years earlier. Dark walnut desk, built-in shelves, a smug photo of Victor shaking hands with the governor. The computer was password protected. Grant looked at me. Ideas? Try Apex Langford 2020. It worked on the 2nd try. Men like Victor always think they're untouchable. Grant's gloved fingers flew across the keyboard. His face went very still. Judge, you're gonna want to see this. Hidden partition. Encrypted folder labeled simply insurance. Inside, subfolders named with women's first names. Nora. Chloe. Danielle. Samantha. Lauren. My stomach turned to stone. Grant clicked Nora's folder. Hundreds of videos. Some dated back almost 2 years. Sleeping. Showering. Crying after he hit her. Timestamped. Catalogued. Weaponized. There were still images too. Close-ups of bruises he'd inflicted, captioned with dates and snide little notes. Lesson learned? Next time worse. I had to step back and grip the edge of the desk to keep from putting my fist through the monitor. Grant's voice was hoarse. We're going to need the cybercrimes van. And a bigger evidence locker. I found the manila folder in the bottom drawer. Physical photographs, medical records Victor had obtained illegally, psychiatric notes he'd forged to paint Nora as unstable, printouts of emails to Randall Quinn outlining exactly how to destroy her credibility if she ever tried to leave. Page after page of premeditation. I carried the folder out myself. On the balcony, 32 floors above the city, the sun was finally up, gilding the river gold. I stood there with the folder in my hands and understood something with perfect clarity. Victor hadn't just abused Nora. He had built an entire architecture of terror designed to make escape impossible. And he had done it before. 4 times that we knew of. I looked out over Eastbridge, all those glittering windows hiding God only knew what, and made a silent promise to every woman still trapped behind one of them. Not today. The reckoning. By 10 a.m. the precinct interview rooms looked like a war room. Aisha Reynolds had commandeered the largest one. Whiteboards, timelines, 5 terrified but furious women sitting around the table with victim advocates and the best prosecutor in the state. Chloe Wilson, Victor's ex from 4 years ago, spoke first, voice shaking but steady. He told me no one would believe me because I was just a bartender and he owned half the city. He sent the videos to my mother the day I left him. Danielle Brooks, corporate attorney, ironically, had been driven out of her firm after Victor anonymously circulated altered images implying an affair. Samantha and Lauren told almost identical stories. Same pattern. Same threats. Same blackmail files. 5 women. 5 folders on 1 hard drive. 5 lives he had tried to erase. Aisha looked like an avenging angel in a navy suit. Ladies, what we have here isn't just 5 cases of domestic violence. It's one serial predator operating with impunity for 8 years. I'm charging him under the state's pattern of abuse statute, federal cyberstalking. Sexual extortion, the works. We go to trial together or he walks away to do it again. Your choice. Not one of them hesitated. Nora, still in hospital scrubs, bruises livid against the pale fabric, looked around the table and started to cry, not from fear this time, but from the sheer relief of no longer being alone. I thought I was crazy, she whispered. He made me think I was. Chloe reached across and took her hand. We all thought we were. I stood in the doorway and watched 5 strangers become a battalion. The trial. The trial lasted 9 days. Aisha presented 487 exhibits. 82 separate videos. Medical testimony from 3 separate hospitals. Digital forensics tracing Victor's blackmail campaign across state lines. And 5 women on the stand, one after another, telling the same story in different words. The defense tried every trick. Claimed the videos were consensual role play. Suggested the women had colluded. Tried to paint Victor as the real victim of obsessive exes. The jury didn't buy it for a second. On the 9th day, they deliberated for 4 hours and 21 minutes. Guilty on all 37 counts. The courtroom was silent enough to hear Victor's handcuffs click when the bailiffs moved in. Nora didn't cheer. She simply closed her eyes and exhaled a breath I think she'd been holding for 2 years. Sentencing was set for 6 weeks later. Victor got 30 years, no parole for 22. Mandatory registration as a violent sexual offender. Permanent no-contact orders for all 5 women. When the judge's gavel fell, Nora turned to me and said, very quietly, I can breathe now. Nora's apartment is small, third floor walk up in the arts district, windows that actually open, plants on every sill. Sunlight pours in every morning like it's personally apologizing for all the days it was locked out. She published the book 6 months ago. It hit the bestseller list and stayed there. Chloe's nonprofit has helped 312 women find safe housing so far. Danielle is back practicing law, specializing in representing abuse survivors pro bono. Samantha and Lauren speak at colleges together, finishing each other's sentences like sisters. I still practice, but only the robe is retired. Now I wear jeans and sneakers and spend my days in courtrooms as an advocate, sitting behind women who remind me of my daughter the night she called from the precinct. Sometimes the system still fails. But not as often. Not when we refuse to be silent. Last week Nora texted me a photo. She was standing on her balcony at sunset, arms spread wide like she was hugging the whole sky. Caption: I'm not surviving anymore. I'm alive. I saved the photo as my phone background. Because sometimes the system fails. But mothers don't. And love, when it finally gets loud enough, drowns out every lie. Moral of the story: no amount of money, charm, or connections can silence the truth when a victim finally speaks and someone with power refuses to look away. Abusers thrive in darkness and disbelief. Love, courage, and evidence turn on the lights. And a mother's fierce refusal to let the system fail her child can break a predator's entire world. Truth wins when we stop protecting the lie.